Good morning. Welcome to a very exciting topic, Paygroup updates. So it is a little bit of a dry topic. I'll add some little things in it to help move things along. I do have some other information for you. I will go through the slides. We're going to have about 45 minutes together. When we're done with the slides, I'd be happy to take some questions. If you have more company-specific questions, you can always call the office and we'll be happy to help you from there as well. So welcome to our clients, welcome to our guests, and let's go ahead and dive right in. Oh, I will mention our webinars and our weekly tips, which are 2 minutes or less each week on IT-related topics, Sage-related topics, are available on our YouTube channel and also on our website. So let me get this started, and we'll get this webcam out of the way so that everyone can see all the screens. All right, so let's dive in. We're going to talk about pay groups. I'm also going to share with you a little bit about job pay groups, something that you may or may not be aware of on that. Each year, and for some of you, it's actually more than once a year, the unions publish new rate and benefit sheets with specific start dates. January 1, June 1st, those are the most common. A couple of you have May dates, and a couple even have fall, September dates. There is a very methodical process in Sage 100 Contractor, Master Builder, that allows you to get a couple of things that you need. All the reports you need for the old rates, the new rates updated from one place, and then pushing those to the employee default for their hourly rate, and then make sure that your next group of reports are correct. So there are some specific methodical steps that we're going to cover today, and with those things in mind, you can do those without overpaying for the several days of overlap during a week where we have some dates at the old rate and some dates at the new rate and benefits. So here's what we're going to cover in our time together. The timing of this process. So for most companies, the first check in June will have the old rates from the end of May and some new rates for the beginning of June. So we're going to talk about the options, how to handle the week that has both May and June dates. We're going to talk about the order of events, which things you need to do in what order to make sure that you have the reports that you need, and then some tips on things like getting the pay stub to display the correct new rate. It will be paid at the right rate. How do we get it to display for the right rate? So I consider this a chocolate item. It is a dry topic. There are lots of details. I will show you things as we go. So if you don't have chocolate or a cup of coffee, feel free to grab one really quick and let's dive in. So the first thing I'd like to share with you is some information about pay groups. So I'm going to switch screens. And you should be looking at a sample company. So these all have old dates, but for the sake of what I'd like to share with you, I think we're going to be good to go. I'd like to start by going to the job. There is a job in this here that I have set up using the special job pay groups feature. Basically, you go to the job, and several of you are using this, choose options, and you can come down here and choose job pay groups. Once you're there, you can identify the payroll positions. So for many of you, you might have an office position, an owner position, foreman, maybe a journeyman, maybe a laborer, maybe an apprentice position. You can list what those are here, and you can identify what pay group should be used on this job specifically for any one in these categories. And in a moment, I'll show you why that can be helpful. So you can do this in each job. If you've never done this before, you can choose one and play with this idea. You set these up, you save them just like you do in other screens within the program. I'm going to close this, and I'm going to go out to the payroll module. So that's 522. And we're going to put in one of our foremen, and I'll show you that he in fact has the employee position of foreman. That is his position. And I'm just going to let these default dates come on through, and we're going to give him some time on a job other than the one we just made up. Just gonna If you haven't seen this feature, you have to look up here to see all. Otherwise, you'll only see cost codes associated with job and phase from the perspective of the budget. Hoping to get, have him do some masonry here. There's no pay group. This gentleman does not have a default pay group. His hourly wage is 21. It comes in that way, and I can have him work 8 hours that day. Similarly, I can have him on our special job, and notice that it's bringing in the default pay group for the carpenter foreman, which is the group I had assigned to anyone in the pay category of foreman, and it's going to bring in the rate associated with that pay group, not his default rate. And then I can say that he has 8 hours on that day. For those of you who work in on jobs that are across counties or perhaps across a state line where the union is different and you're paying a different union, or you have to pay a different rate because it's a different jurisdiction, this can be incredibly helpful in accuracy. If you set it up that that job is in a particular state or group or county, it will bring in that default regardless of the person's default rate and home group. So if you want to hear more about that, let me know. Otherwise, I just wanted to be sure I shared this with you. Several of the customers of ours that have been on the program for a number of years were not aware of this new feature, so I thought this would be a good opportunity to share that with you. So I'm going to go on back to our main topic for today, and we're going to talk about updating those pay groups. All right, so I'm going to suggest that you on your other screen, or you take out your calendar and you take a look at the month of May and the beginning of June. And I just want to talk you through what some of the guidelines are that I'm going to use in this presentation. Yours might be a day or two different than this, but throughout this presentation, we're going to be looking at a work week that starts Sunday through Saturday. And we're going to be looking at checks that are dated Wednesdays. Those will be the guidelines I'm going to use in this demo. Yours might be Monday through Sunday. It might be a Thursday check date. You can translate there, but for the sake of our discussion today, Sunday through Saturday, check date is Wednesday. So if you have a calendar in front of you, these dates I'm going to go over next will make sense and you'll be able to follow through. All right. The week of May 20th through 26th, Sunday through Saturday, 2018, that work week, the check date will be May 30th, 2018. So there are no changes there. Those will all be at the rates that are good through May 31st. For May 27th through June 2nd work week, with a check date of Wednesdays, that would be June 6th, here are some of the options we're going to consider today. One, if you have anyone working on Sunday the 27th and or Monday the 28th, Memorial Day, you will probably want to pay these overtime at the lower rates. So a split check is looking good. It's looking like a good idea. In fact, I just got the Mason Contractors memo just over the weekend with some of the updates on there about what to expect and rates and things like that. According to this, Saturday the 26th, Sunday the 27th, and Monday to the 28th would all be paid at double time for the bricklayers. Now, I don't know where your union falls in on that, but be sure that you know what these rules are as you consider which of these options to go through and which ones you want to do. So let me go back to the slides. All right. Most of this work week, even if Monday is a holiday, will be paid at the old rate. It would be better to pay these days at the old rate than to put the whole week on at the higher rates because there are more days in May than June. So be sure to think this through and do the math. What is that extra cost going to be to you if you're busy right now, or if you have people who would work at those higher rates because of the holiday weekend? If you have significant field hours on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, even if you're not working the holiday, it might be worth considering cutting the two separate checks, one at the old rate and the old benefits, and then a separate check for the 2 days in June at the new rate. The extra time that you spend to cut the two checks is going to be a lot less then the time you're going to spend considering what the manual adjustment is and updating those benefit calcs on each of the checks for those few days in June, or going back and separating out your union time in order to do the union reports for the crossover between May and June. Honestly, that's where the auditors come in. They can see how you paid it. You often have to pull a lot of detail on those. So this might be a lot less time cutting 2 checks in the week than you're going to spend making all these updates. So let's look at a couple of scenarios. And it's not the same answer for everyone. That's why I'm going to cover them both. So what's involved if you decide to pay at the higher rate for the 4 or 5 days of work for the last couple days of May? So here's the guidelines. The scenario is we're going to overpay at the higher rates for the couple of days of May. So we're going to run the last full check of May all the way through on May 30th check as usual. That was our first scenario. Then you're going to print the May union report for checks dated 5/1 through 5/31. So you might remember at the beginning here, we said that the work week the 20th through the 26th would be paid on Wednesday the 30th. So if I'm going to pay the mixed week at the higher rate, all I need to do now is get my union report from 5/1 to 5/31. Make any copies you need. Just a reminder for anybody who has a Friday check date, you would run this union report, the May union report, 5/1 to 6/1, because June 1 is going to be your last check at the old rates. In this scenario, you would follow the Paygroup update steps, and I'm going to go through those in a bit, so that you're ready to run the next check. And this would include the new hourly rates and benefits. So that's what's going to be on the next check. Enter the payroll records with the period starting of 5/27 and the period end of 6/2 like you normally would. And that check would be dated Wednesday, June 6th. And you're going to process it as usual using the higher rate and higher benefit for that mixed work week. When you get ready to make the June union report, watch your dates. Be sure that you don't double pay anything. You're going to run that report for all the dates starting with the first check in June at the new rate. So be careful that you don't double pay. If your check dates are Wednesdays, your June report is going to be June 1 through June 30th. Same thing for Thursday. If your check date was Friday, June 1st, your June report then would be for dates June 4th through June 30th. All right, I'm pausing on purpose. So June 1 to June 30th for Wednesday and Thursday check dates. If your Friday is your check date, you're going to do June 4 through June 30th, because the June 1st check was your last check in May, last work dates in May. So that's the scenario if you decide to go ahead and pay that mixed week all at the higher rate and higher benefits. So what's involved if you decide to run 2 checks for the week, one at the lower rate and benefits and one at the new rate and benefits? So here's the scenario. You would enter the payroll records for a period start date of 5/27, period end date of 5/31. The check would be dated Tuesday, June 5th, the day before our usual checks are run, Tuesday the 5th. Couple things to note. If you have people with garnishments, loan payments, other non-union deductions, whatever they might be, let everything calculate as normal, since this check has the most number of days on it. And then also, you need to remember that a Tuesday check date has different tax payment rules than a Wednesday check date. So make sure you're following the IRS guidelines if you're a semi-weekly filer. So after you cut these checks, so you're going to cut the check dated June 5th, Tuesday, for the last couple of days in May at the old rate with the old benefits. When you're done, you're going to print the union report for May from 5/1 through June 5th. And you're going to get all the work that was paid at the May rates. Make copies. Make sure you've got everything you need to print it out. Hopefully you tie it out with your liability accounts, but no matter what, make sure you have some copies. Then you would follow the Paygroup update steps that I'm going to go over in a little bit. And you would update all your pay groups and your employee default hourly rates, and you'd be ready to run the next check. Now you would enter a payroll record for a period start date of June 1, period end date of June 2. The check date is going to be our regular Wednesday, June 6th check date. Something to note, if you followed the recommendation I just gave on the previous slide to let all the garnishments and other deductions go through, you would override these as 0 after you do the trial compute. So if someone has a child support check for the week, we would have already taken it on the larger check that had the most number of days. If they have any work on Friday the 1st or Saturday the 2nd, we would overwrite the garnishment as 0. When you get ready to do the June union report, your check dates would be 6/6 through 6/30. So that's our first regular Wednesday check date that covers our first 2 days in June, all the way through the end of June. Please be sure you don't double pay the split week of May. I see this very often where we forget and we go back and we run the June report, June 1 to June 30th, and we're overpaying. And I also recommend you tie out with those liability accounts. Even if you accidentally forget, you're going to get a big red flag when you see that the report is way higher than what you have in your liability accounts. So that's a good double check. So remember I mentioned in both of those scenarios that there would be some steps to update the new pay rates and the benefits. So first of all, the pay group update steps. In the program, it is designed, it is well built to minimize the amount of records you have to touch when there's a union change of rates and or benefits. I remember one year there were no increases in the hourly rate, but there were benefit changes. So either way, this is the step. There's no need to go to each and every employee. In fact, if you go to employees and you don't upgrade the pay groups, you're going to have a problem. And I'm going to show you the hierarchy in a moment. The second point on here is that the employee check stub or voucher always displays their default hourly rate. And some of the most common calls I get during this time of the year is that the employees are upset because the old rate is printed on the reference of their check stub. And if you show them the math is correct, that they got paid at the new rate, but they have a hard time getting past that. So we want to do our best to get those rates, the default rates, updated on that pay stub so that we don't cause confusion for our guys in the field. All right, so here are some of the things to consider. There is a hierarchy. If you have one rate in the pay group, another rate in their employee file, and yet a third rate in the pay calc, and it is possible that someone has a different amount in those three places, there is a set of rules that decide which number wins, and here they are. Any pay calc that's identified in the pay calc screen, which is 531, with the checkbox Use in Pay Group Benefits, will look at the amount on the benefit tab in the pay group as the winner. That is what will be used when you do the trial compute. Not the one in the calculation screen, the one in the benefits tab in the pay group. So for those of you who might be newer to this process, I'm just going to take a moment and show you exactly which screen I am referring to. So 5, 3, 4 is where all the pay groups are listed. Here they all are. Let me close my window here for a moment. In the hierarchy, whatever is in this benefits tab, whatever rate this is the one that will win if there's a different rate in the actual pay calc. Notice there's no rate in this one. When this pay calc is created and this box is checked, Use in Pay Group Benefits, if there's a conflict, this is the one that will win. So this is where you're going to update this. The great news is everyone in this pay group category will get this automatically pushed to them, and you don't have to go touch each and every employee, which is the whole beauty of the system. All right, let me go back. The second one in the hierarchy is the employee's rate in the 521 screen. So in their employee record, whatever rate is on their calculations tab would take second seat, and the last seat in the hierarchy is any rate that's in the actual pay calc screen. So let's start with 534. That's where I was just a moment ago on the screen. And here are a couple tips for you. So when there's a rate change, you can delete the overtime and premium time column rates. When you do that and you put the new hourly rate in, it will automatically default over for time and a half and double time. So let me show you how that works. Back to that 534 screen. I could actually come down here and blow away the overtime rates and the double time rates for those categories. If I then change this to 2620, it will automatically do the time and a half and double time for me and do the math. For many unions, this is a great time saver. For some of you, that's not how the time and a half and double time works, but for the majority of you, that will work. And then I can come over here in my note field and I can say, exactly what day I did this. And as soon as I've done that, that top information is right there and I know I finished that one. Now I'm not going to save, but that is how that works, and that's a great time saver. And go back to our list here. For the pay calcs, which includes the employer benefits, add deducts for your vacations, employee deductions, union dues, things like that. Check to see if the rates and amounts for the foreman and the journeyman will be the same. And you can update the grid with the new rates. So the grid of that benefit tab, you can put the new rates in there for each of the calculations. Go ahead and save, call it back up. You can copy that grid and paste it into the benefit tab of other pay groups that are going to have those same rates. It does save quite a bit of time and it increases accuracy, but be careful. If the rate is different for an apprentice, or if the foreman rate per hour is different than the journeyman rate per hour, and you use the copy-paste, be sure you stop and change that dollar amount. So if there's 10 different calculations and 2 of them are different, you can still save a lot of time with the copy-paste, but be very careful that you update those 2 that are different. Save often. If you have a lot of pay groups or several different unions, do a few at a time, save, open up the screen, do a few more. If you make a mistake or something goes wrong and you want to close without saving, you don't want to lose all the work that you just did. So do 1 or 2, save, bring it back up. It'll save you some frustration later. There's nothing worse than doing 5 or 6 pay groups, realizing you made a mistake, and now if you exit all the work you did, you won't be able to save. This is what I was showing you just a moment ago. The end of every one of those pay group lines has a notes field. And that is a great place to keep track of what you've done and who did it. So for those of you who in the office maybe only have 1 or 2 people that would even change these things, it might be a note about what day you did it. For those of you who have a couple of people who are responsible or who are going to pitch in this effort, it would be great to put their initials on it so you know who changed which unions, and if there's questions, you know who to go back to. I recommend and encourage that you would put most recent comments on top. So rather than scroll down and put the next comment at the bottom, hit enter, and insert a line at the top. You noticed when I showed you the screen, you could actually see the beginning of the note. So the first thing you could see was the date that I had done it and a little bit about what I had done. That saves you from the time of even having to open up the notes to see when the change was made. So I encourage you to put those on the top, insert. All right. Now, in our order of events, we have chosen our dates. We have paid everybody for the May rates and benefits that we put in there. We've printed our May union reports. We've gone in and put in the new rates and benefits for June, and we are now ready to trial compute and run our payroll. But the union reports that are defaulted in Sage 100 Contractor are going to look to the pay calc screen in order to print those 21 and 31 reports from the 5-1 screen. So the next thing that you need to consider is updating the dollar amount in the pay calcs themselves for your benefits, add deducts, employee deductions. So I've got a couple options for you. One is while you're on the benefits tab, and that's the screen we were just in, and I'll show you again in a moment, you can actually right-click on the pay calc. It takes you right down to the actual pay calc record, and you can change the dollar amount or the percent right then and there and save. Or after you've made all the changes on the benefits tab, you can go back to the 531 screen, call up those pay calcs, and go ahead and update the rates. Remember that you might have more than one calc for a union. You might have one that's for your foreman, another one that's for your journeyman, another one that's for your apprentice. So make sure that you're updating each and every one of those. So let me show you exactly what I mean by this drill down feature. So I'm going to go back to my foreman carpenter here in this default sample company. I'm going to go ahead and pull up the benefits tab. You only have one here. I can actually right click on the calc itself, and if you choose the second thing down or hit the F6 key, I can see the display. It'll display the exact record. I am now in the 531 screen. I am on the pay calc, and I would be able to go ahead and put in the new rate. If it's of benefit to you, you would even have the option to come up here and say, something like this, if that was helpful to you. Okay, so that would save you a little time. You're already in this screen. You're already updating this rate per hour. You don't need to do this over and over again, by the way. So if I have updated that calc for the foreman and I happen to be using the same calc for the journeyman, I don't need to right click and update it again. I've already updated calc 20. All I need to do now is update the rate. The other alternative is I can go to 531, I can pull up my union calc, and I of course can make the change right here rather than from the drill down from the pay group benefit. Okay. And of course, very simple to do this. Most of you, most of our clients anyway, have their pay group calcs in specific number ranges, so it's pretty obvious. And usually they're grouped together as well. So you can just kind of work down, make the change, save, go to the next one, make the change, save, and so on. All right. Going back to our steps here. When you're done with the edits, you're going to save, go back to 534, that's your pay group, and click on the printer in the far right corner. I recommend selecting report 22, which shows each of the pay groups with benefits, and the rates will be there. Go ahead and print that to the screen or to paper. This is a great way to put it right next to the union sheet that you're working off of with the updated benefits and hourly rates, and make sure that you got all the pay groups, all the benefit tabs, and that everything is correct. Even you eyeballing it, you can tell if something jumps out at you. So let me just show you that report briefly. So we were in 534, which is the pay group report. We were updating our benefits tabs. We drilled down and updated our pay calcs. Now I can print on the printer icon. Click on the printer icon. On the left, I can print with benefits and notes, or just with benefits, which is the one I'm suggesting. I can print it for a specific union or a specific group of pay groups. So if I've got 4 different unions and I finished one and I would like to print it just for that one, I can do it that way to the screen or to paper, and I can double check and look down, and right here I can kind of double check my hourly rates, and I can double check that my foreman and my journeyman should have the same rate per hour. They sure enough do. And the other thing that I do when I do this on behalf of a client is I'll actually put this printout in the folder with the rate sheets for everything that we did in getting ready for the June 1st rollout of the new rates. So all our work papers are in one place, everything exactly as we had it at that moment in time. So one more thing before you go back to processing the payroll. So we've got May all set and our reports. We've got the June rates updated, the pay calcs updated, the benefits updated. We are ready to rock and roll, but before we create those 522 pay records, one more thing we can do. You can go to the 521 employee screen, click options, which is in the upper left-hand corner of the screen, And under options, one of the selections is update all employees from Paygroups. And when you hover over that, two options come up. The first one is update pay rates. Let that run. Go back, choose option, update all employees from Paygroups again, and this time choose the second one, which is update benefits. This process updates the default hourly rate for each of the union employees' records in their 521 screen with the new hourly rate for their default pay group. So that means that now when you go to the 522 screen and you create their pay record and it brings in their default hourly rate, it's going to bring in the new default hourly rate. So you don't have this confusion on the behalf of the field where they've got a check stub with the old rate, but of course the body of it, their actual hours of pay have been done at the new rate. So just let's summarize where we are. All right, so you're going to determine the check date that pays the last full week of work in May. That date is absolutely going to be included on your May union report and might include a June date if your payroll is dated Friday, June 1st. Then you're going to decide if you're going to pay the 4 or 5 days in May at the new higher rates and benefits, or if you're going to create two separate check runs, both dated June, but one would be all the work through the last day, May 31st, paid in June, and the next one would be for the first couple days in June, paid in June. Then, depending on your choice, you're going to make sure all the union reports for May are printed, copied, all set before you make any of the new rate and benefit changes. Those fields can only hold one number or the other. So you wrap up May, you make sure you've got the reports and everything is set to go before you proceed. Then you're going to make the rate and benefit changes, do the double check. I suggested that report as a good double check. Update the pay calcs, either drill down or go to the pay calcs themselves. Update the defaults. That means the defaults in the employee record so the hourly rate comes in, and then you're ready to create your 522 records from whatever format you have, and it will have the new default rates. So that is the end of the information about the pay group updates and all of the things to consider. I would definitely encourage you to get a calendar in front of you, get a calculator in front of you, figure out where some of these are going to fall for you. We've got considerations about when your field is actually working. Do you have things going on in this week of May? Does it make sense? If you're doing overtime on Sunday, perhaps even Saturday, especially if you're in the bricklayer union, Sunday, Monday, those are all going to be at premium rates. That would probably not be a good time to pay at the higher rate. And of course, you don't want to pay the first day or two in June at the lower rate because you would be hit with penalties and interest as well as the difference upon audit. So look at the calendar, think that through, look at the steps that you're going to do to wrap up May and get the union report information you need, create the June checks, watch your dates, be careful you don't double pay the union by including checks that are part of the prior month's reporting, and then watch those pay calcs and things along those lines. And don't forget to update that hourly rate.